Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast. Sorry, asleep. Sorry. Where are we? What are we doing? Is this the reaction? I was having a dream, a bad dream, Alex. I had to watch Arsenal. Jesus Christ, that was really stressful in not in a fun way. That was really boring. That game. That was really
I just
boring.
said to you, didn't I? When Greaves went down at the end, I was just like, please, just get up. Just let us finish.
Let this
blow
be over.
Whistle.
Let this be over. Look, a win is a win. A win is a win, boys and girls.
We'll take it.
There's a lot of positives to take from that game, but sometimes it is okay to just say we are really, really boring. That was
1-0 to the Arsenal.
I can't tell if it's just like a post-Christmas kind of slump or something, but wow, yeah, that was tough. Arsenal won, Ipswich Town 0 at the Emirates. Look, 3 points. We are now 6 points behind Liverpool. We've gone second in the league. I think overall on Boxing Day, it's like the least goals ever or something. It's like 17 goals in 10 fixtures or something mad.
Yeah.
That is mad. Is it? I mean, joking aside, is it? I don't want to go too tinfoil hat here, but like, you know, there must be something in the fixture congestion. Because wow,
too many mince pies, too many chocolate logs, too much clotted cream. That's what it is.
Too much. You having clotted cream at Christmas?
Oh, in Cornwall, Cornish clotted cream. Oh, goes with everything.
Well, all
goes
right.
With chocolate log, goes with mince pies, goes with steak if you want it to, but yeah.
Clotted cream with steak?
Not really.
Right, we're coming back to that. Yes. Okay. Well, let's get started. Let's see what we can sort of take from that game. Okay. First half, I will say I thought we counter-pressed really, really well. I think that was the basis of this performance. I think like the energy and I will say it was an incredibly boring second half. The first half there was some fight in it. There was some aggression in us. We were having the same old issues, and there is only so many times we can talk about whether we need a forward or not. And I mean, if you watch that game and you come away from it thinking, also don't need a forward, then good luck to you. But in fairness, in terms of all the things that, we're sort of looking for to sort of, I guess, underpin the performance, I thought the counter press was there. I thought the tempo was there. It just wasn't really dropping for us in the first half. Obviously, you get the goal. Probably could have gone in at half time with 2, 3, 4. What did you think?
Yeah. The counter press was the biggest thing for me. Watching it, Myles, Lewis-Skelly and Gabriel, I think they were just holding that left-hand side the whole time. And whether we need an attacker or not, I just feel like progression, like there's no one carrying the ball. So throughout that first half, it was just asking for someone to just drive through them.
Trying to find the positives there. It is a win.
I'll start again. Yeah. Finish the half. Goal. Maybe could have got another one. Yeah, we've had better days in the office, but yeah, in all honesty, that first half, we scored at the right time, didn't we?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think sometimes, this is definitely one of those. And I want to be clear. We won the game, so I'm trying not to complain too much. But yeah, we scored at the right time. I did feel, ultimately this could have been a day where without Bukayo Saka, we get a 0-0 and it's inevitable, and we're sat here complaining about it. So we came out with the win. I thought it was some unbelievable individual performances. Again, just sticking on the positives for now. I think like Myles was brilliant. I want to come to him sort of in more detail a bit later on. But also I thought from Declan Rice, I thought Rice had a brilliant evening this evening. Ball came very quickly in and out of his feet. I thought he controlled the tempo in the middle of the park. I thought Ødegaard, especially second half, was brilliant. William Saliba, I was sort of saying, is there a bit of maybe coasting going on in the last game? But this game, he completely showed me up. Thought he looked brilliant. Gabriel, lots of invention in the pass. Really nice sort of passing through the lines as well and was going long. So individually, I didn't think anyone had a particularly poor evening. I will say maybe on Martinelli, it's just not his bag, but we kind of know that. Maybe we can come on to him in a little bit more detail later. But maybe let's stick on Myles. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The confidence to come in at his age, to do what he's doing, to show us. And I was, to be fair, there was points to the first half where it was getting to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm just going to watch someone and see what I can learn because nothing was happening on the ball. And his availability off the ball, not hiding in the cover shadow. What you often find is, I think, players of that age, especially when they're in the middle of the park, physically they're overdone. That's absolutely not him. But also technically, I think they can sometimes coast a little bit and hide and maybe look to senior players. It's just not what he does. He's constantly available, showing for it. He wants the ball. He wants the ball in difficult areas. David Raya's giving him the ball in difficult areas. But also what I love is he doesn't make himself the protagonist. Again, I would say the other end of that spectrum is young players who try to make everything about them. And that's not what you want either. And he's got that perfect balance of just doing his job, showing himself, being confident. I love it. He's a bit of a shithouser as well. I absolutely love it. I
that
love
bit
it with
Amari as well.
Amari.
Body checks him, and I thought, I mean, his use of his body is incredible.
Yeah,
you don't find very many players at that age. The only kind of players I can think of, like Wayne Rooney, who had like complete control of his body, understood like how to hold his ground, how to like push players off the ball. Just unbelievable. And like you say, like the confidence, I think within the first 5 minutes, he punched the ball straight through. Yep. And it was such an incisive pass. And I thought there's not many players that would do that, let alone at his age. But he was coming into the midfield alongside Rice with Timber. I think if George was here right now, I'll do a best George impression.
Go on.
We had our lateral shufflers across. Okay, there we go. There you go. There's my Cornish Canadian for everyone. But it was, he's using that zone really, really well. I think I'll double check, but I think him and Timber won 16 out of 19 ground duels.
Wow.
Those two were just fantastic, just absolutely brilliant today.
Yeah, I thought there was some numbers going around with Myles on Squawker. Let me just find it. And his first half was incredible. Here it is. Squawker Myles. Yeah, Myles Lewis-Skelly's first half by numbers: 48 out of 49 passes completed, 6 out of 8 duels won, 2 out of 2 take-ons completed, 2 fouls won, 1 chance created, 1 tackle. And Ultra Pro Gamer, thank you for your super chat. Is MLS nailed on to the left back now? What a performance. I don't necessarily know if he's nailed on, but I think what we have found is an unbelievable option there, and someone who I think also, and again, trying to stick on the positives because we did win. The problem is people forget we're doing this literally, the final whistle finished about what were we, 7 minutes in? So the final whistle went 9 minutes ago. So I just watched the second half and fell asleep, but I'm trying to get a sense of the whole game. And I'm trying to remember the positive because that is, and this is a massive one. I think what is exciting is Myles is somebody, and like I said this recently on Instant Reaction, he carries through bodies. And we don't always have that. We have carriers through space, like Declan Rice. We have carriers like Timber on the underlap, but someone who's going to see players and go, right, well, I back myself to just get through you.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting, especially to come from fullback where we get so much of our impetus in our play. So credit to him. Look, I mean, I'm looking at that bench again, trying not to be drawn by why are there 4 left backs, but if I'm looking at the bench, I'm looking at Calafiori, I'm looking at Kivior, I'm looking at Tierney, and I'm looking at Zinchenko. And 18-year-old Myles Lewis-Skelly is keeping all of those guys out, which is a huge credit to him.
No, I'm looking. I think Zinchenko right now has got to start thinking, what do I do long term? Because I look at Myles and I think he's in profile wise pretty similar to Zinchenko, but physically he's so much more durable. He understands how to defend zones in a lot better of a way. He seems to have picked up a real good understanding with Gabriel straight away, which is something that we can bring in. And I also think his versatility moving into midfield, Arteta never used Zinchenko primarily as a midfielder, but I think that's something that we could do with Myles further down the line. So I just think he's doing unbelievably. However, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if we dip back into the market come the summer for
another left back. And that's the maddest part about all of this is that we found another left back, but probably we do need a sort of properly overlapping. And if you look at the market out there right now, I think saw someone talk about this. So there's Nuno Mendes, there's Dorgu, there's Davies, there's some people mentioning other players as well. So I think the market's pretty flush with left backs. O'Malley says, winning home games is going to be massive second half of the season. Most of our difficult games are at home, bar Forest and Liverpool. Performance needs to pick up and take more risks. Yeah, and maybe we can talk about some positives having talked, negatives having talked about positive. I think that the real shame of this evening was not to show our teeth a little bit more. I think that's the real frustration, to feel as though we're coming away. We know Arsenal can do that. We know we can control the game. We know what we're going to look at in the numbers. We're going to see 0.0001 XG for them, and we're going to see high field tilt and high possession and high passes and stuff. We know all this. The shame is in these sorts of games when we have that, we can't. And I was thinking about this, like, sort of before we often take the angle of the manager, but I always come back to that Thierry Henry clip where he talks about Pep Guardiola, right? And he says, like, the manager's job is to get you to the final third and the player's job is to finish it. I like, when I look at the amount of touches in the box, when I look at the amount of time we're spending in the final third, obviously there's things that I think the coach can do. I think he's got the balance issues wrong in the past. I think he's picked the wrong players in the wrong positions. But at some point, I'm also looking at players seemingly unable to create a moment of separation, or I'm seeing the wrong decision being made, or I'm seeing a player with his hips facing goal with a moment to shoot, cutting back. And at some point on nights like these, I do go, yes, okay, we absolutely do need a signing. Yes, the coach is at fault, but I'm not trying to pin blame on players, but we all know, let's be honest, guys, we all know there's a world we're sat here having drawn 0-0 and we're having this whole conversation. And I don't want to be disingenuous. I want to say it when we're winning as well. So people don't think that I'm just, critiquing for the sake of it. This is what we all feel. And it's still happening on nights like these, even when results go a different way. And what happens is, results go the other way and people say, oh, you're just being toxically positive. No, this is reality. And if you keep doing this stuff, eventually it's going to catch you out. So it's a bit of a concern for me.
I mean, I'll start off with like a positive in that respect. I thought Trossard in that first half, he showed some real positivity, like especially in his passing. Just before the goal, I mean, that goal was great that he went on the outside and crossed in with his left foot, but just before it, he'd actually done a half space cross with his right foot that was like narrowly kind of away. And I just looked at it and I thought it's nice to see some incisiveness. And one of the only passages of play where there was a little bit of separation was Odegaard. I didn't think he had a fantastic performance tonight. It was one of his kind of more mediocre performances, to be honest. But there was one part where he actually took a man on and they made it happen. It was almost like he thought, actually, I'm Odegaard, I can do this. Yeah. And thinking back to that Henry comment, we don't have many players that have that in them. I don't see Havertz as that type of player. I don't really see Martinelli as that type of player. Saka, I think if you look at the statistics, I did a bit of digging before the match. I think he's at about 30% of all goals and assists have gone through Saka since the beginning of the 22-23 season. So, we're missing a player who's got a stake in a third of our goals and assists. So, unfortunately, it was going to look like this. And I think we've got to come to terms with, at the moment, we're going to have to kind of grin and bear it, and we just got to get through the strategy and how we're working. That has to kind of take precedence over time. When we get players like Saka back, if we do some business in January, then we might have that little bit of a spark, that little bit of a maverick back in the team. But
yeah, and it's players who I think you're right at picking out players like it's not that you don't need these players in your attack. It's always about the balance, and it's the players who they know that you can feel them. And actually, Rice is probably one of those players in the final third who, when he gets a moment, he creates a moment of separation. He has a shot, and we just need one of those players. But there's only so many times we can say that. Ason, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Much appreciated. I also, just on that as well, you sort of mentioned it there that when Odegaard did pick up the ball and carry, there is always ways to break teams down. And when I was looking at the sort of the three, I guess, in front of Saliba and Gabriel, with Myles, Rice and Timber, those are three players that I trust in the carry. And that maybe is more of a coaching thing where I'm going, why aren't players driving through? Because there was a moment with Timber who was brilliant, where he drives through and it all opens up for him. When teams are sat in that block and you're not getting space that wide, it's always a case of, okay, if they're pressing onto you, you've got space in behind. If they're dropping deep, you've got space in front. There's always spaces. And I felt as though they did well to defend the wide areas. They were quite sort of, I guess, horizontal, but also quite shallow. And I felt that's great space to set yourself to sort of maybe tease them out a little bit and then go through for the carry, especially with Jesus and Havertz in there for, wall passes and stuff. And we didn't seem to do that. And that was, a little bit frustrating. I do, before we come to some more sort of individual performances, maybe want to talk about some other sort of positive aspects of the game. William Saliba and Gabriel as the platform, I do think we can maybe take it as a little bit for granted. The way we can create this amount of dominance and the way we can create this amount, the fact that we are so frustrated in many ways, sort of not necessarily tonight, but through the season with the final third, comes from the fact that we have these platform setting guys. And I think what happens is we focus so much on them that they can, in these conversations, lose their flowers. And credit to them, Saliba and Gabriel. Like the consistency they show, the bravery in their passing actually that they're showing compared to some of their players in front of them, the way Raya's dealing with crosses and stuff, we just take it so much for granted. And actually that platform, and Rice as well this evening, I can see is talking to Prime. I just think they deserve a moment to be said, like the platform they set and the dominance they show allows us to be this way.
I mean, I think Gabriel had over 100 touches tonight.
Yeah.
90% of his passes accurate as well. But it's not just a type of, it's not just simple passes back and forth. There's so many of his passes that are just incisive, like through the lines. I did feel like maybe we could have gone over the top a few more times. You mentioned the wall passes. That's not to do with them in particular, but I did feel like maybe a little bit of a variance in our passing could have really helped. But Gabriel and Saliba just unbelievable. And I dipped into it earlier about Myles and Gabriel, but that left-hand side was key for those two players. Havertz wasn't really kind of a left day. If you look at his heat map again, he started kind of coming over to the right-hand side. I could see Odegaard popping up on the left as well at times, which is quite nice.
Yep.
But I don't know, it's something that the system has to kind of work out. We play with so many different faces, which is fantastic, but at times it can be frustrating. And I'd mentioned it earlier, us scoring at that time was key because it could become a real frustrating night. But those two, Saliba and Gabriel, just unbelievable. And I think sometimes it goes under the radar how good they are because we won't control games like we do without them.
For sure. Let's have a look at the numbers. Arsenal 1, Ipswich 0, 1 point expected goals to 0.1, which, again, I'm trying not to be negative because it is a win, but 1.8 from the amount of dominance that we had and the amount of time we spent in the final third, I think is probably a little bit undercooked for me. PPDA down at 5.5, which talks about, sort of speaks to the counter press. 18 progressive passes to their 7. I would have expected a little bit more. 36 zone 14 touches to 11. That's a little bit better. 52 deep touches to their 9. I love when teams create minus expected threat against us. 70 final third entries to their 24 and 67.9% possession to their 32, which I think in the first half there was some mad number about like 83% possession, which was, I think Prime were mentioning it was some kind of Opta record. I
want to say in the first 20 minutes we had 93% possession or 91%. Just...
I heard Mikel say something the other day about, I think it was the West Ham game last year, and when you're like, you wish these statistics, because they wouldn't feel so kind of like not pointless, but they would have a different flavor to them if we'd won something. He said against West Ham last year we had the most amount of box touches. The game we lost 2-0 at home, the most amount of box touches in Premier League history, and I was just like, God's sake, classic Arsenal. There's our shot map and there's our running XG. I think you can see obviously the most XG came from the goal. I would suspect this one was maybe the Havertz chance later on, potentially, or potentially Gabriel. This was Gabriel's chance. Yeah, Gabriel should have gone in, absolutely. And there it is, boys and girls.
That's what we're here for.
That's what we're all here for. It's what you're all waiting for. The flames, the fire. There it is. Yes. I've got a candle. That's why. Let's come to some individual. Actually, we've got a super chat, but then let's come to some individual performances. Another Everton, says Nabil, but we scored. Rice at 6 lacks the temper and rhythm of a Jorginho or Partey. Odegaard had to become a 6 to get us going in the second half. 3 points there, Alex. Which one would you like to take?
Oh, I'll just go with the last one.
Go on.
I mean, I didn't feel like Odegaard kind of came into the 6. I think sometimes people kind of misrepresent him as a 10, whereas really he's kind of a hybrid 10-8. But I thought Rice was actually really good in this game. I thought he was one of the kind of more standout performers. He was someone that was driving through midfield, which, I mean, driving into space, but nonetheless, he was one of the players doing that. He was one of the players that were taking a responsibility of shooting as well. We're not a team that usually shoots from kind of low XG situations, but there was one from the corner that came in from Odegaard that he took on. There was another from the left-hand side. I mean, he's a very different player to Jorginho and a very different player to Partey. I love him in the 6. I think transitionally, he's great. He gives you such security, especially when you've got a player like Myles Lewis-Skelly, who's quite young in his experience, young in age. He gives you that kind of fail-safe that, you know, if Myles drops in, he can kind of cover that area. But I felt Rice did really well, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Look, I a lot of this it depends what he's being asked to do. I think people forget that, you know, if Rice was told by Mikel under every circumstance you have to shoot, he'd probably do it. Now, is that a good thing? Because are there players too much on the manager's thumb? Maybe. But I think a lot of the kind of recycling stuff he does, it's not a capacity issue. If you have an issue with how he's being used, that's a different conversation. That's a conversation between the player and Mikel. If you think there's options for him. But sometimes we know how not how conservative. We know the conservative principles of Mikel. I just look at Rice when he's a 6 and when he's an 8, and I think he's a lot more boisterous as an 8, a lot more conservative and sort of calm as a 6. But there are certain games where he is a lot more progressive. And actually, the ball came out of his feet really quickly today, and he was recycling with tempo and pace. Just because the ball's going sideways, it doesn't make it a bad pass. It's just that you're trying to, you know, maybe go down the sides. We spoke about a lot on the channel, Mikel's usage of the wide areas. So it's always hard. I have to judge him by what I think he's being asked to do. I think where I would agree is on the rhythm of Jorginho and Partey. I think the one area that with Rice that I sometimes struggle with is I think he's very reliable, but sometimes that can become a little bit predictable. So I think he's very reliable in terms of getting the ball back for you. He's very reliable in terms of recycling. When he is being asked to play the ball through the lines, I think he can do that for you. But Jorginho is one of these players who can smell a game a little bit more, and he's just a little bit more sort of aware of when a game needs speeding up and slowing down. And I think Rice just doesn't quite have that at the moment. I think Partey is just full gas pedal all the time. If you want that, then fair enough. But and just on that first point, another Everton, but we scored. This is what, and I know some people are going to be saying, it's a win. What are you complaining about? And in which case, fair enough. But go watch a loss and you'll find people saying, why are you being so positive about a loss? I want to be honest. And we all know we could be sat here in a different universe. So this is why I'm critiquing the team in the way I am. Can someone please tell me who is with Alec? Well, we're both called Alex. This is Alex and this is Alex. Let's come to some individual performances. We've sort of discussed Myles at the beginning. Anyone you want to come to? Anyone that particularly stands out for you? You mentioned Trossard earlier, Havertz, Jesus.
Yeah, I kind of covered Trossard. Trossard, I think it was a mixed bag. I think for a lot of the players, it wasn't a fantastic performance. You know, I'm trying to err on the side of positivity. I'm a lot older than most of the people probably watching this, so it's been a long, hard drought of trophies for me in terms of the Premier League. You know, I can clearly remember going to Highbury. So for me, it's something. It could be easy to slip into that thing of, you know, it's 1-0. And I've seen a lot of different teams. I've seen a lot of different styles of football with Arsenal, but I think, in terms of like players, Trossard was someone that I felt showed some bravery. He's not been in the team kind of regularly. Martinelli's been the guy kind of coming into the left wing situation. Whereas last year, I think he got really a lot of chances, bearing in mind that I know Martinelli obviously had his injuries last year, but he was someone that I felt he was taking that responsibility, making the hard decisions. They're not always going to come off, but without that player doing that, it could get, a lot more dry. I mean, it wasn't a great
Yep.
watch as it was, but I think he was one of the players that showed some of the sparks. And if you go and watch the highlights, he's probably a player that pops up quite often. So has space crossing, going down the line, popping up into left 8 position sometimes. I think he did some good things, and he's not in a easy position right now where he must know the only reason he's starting this game is because Martinelli's gone out on right wing. So it's a real, we look sometimes at just the performance. There's that mental aspect as well. So this is a player who's got a lot kind of going on. So he's got things to prove. But at the same time, I think out of the both wingers, no one really, came out smelling of roses in this game. But I would say out of him, Martinelli, I would say Trossard was the one who performed better.
Yeah, I think you probably edged it. I think you're probably right. If you look back at the game, probably in the best attacking sequences, Trossard was probably involved. I think that's quite a good point. I think on Martinelli, it's just such a hard conversation because I just don't think he's a winger. So and I watch the way he runs, the alleys he runs into, the choice of line, when he chooses to cut inside. And again, the problem is I know the conversation that me and George will be having right now, which is about, well, he's not in the right position and he's not, we haven't put him in, the right position to succeed. Maybe so. But I think at some point you have to I don't know what, it's his time to shine. And I really want to see more on the right side. I really do. And I think it's specifically in beating his man, that is something that I don't think I saw him beat Leif Davis once. No. That's something that that's just a 1v1. Okay. The angles are slightly differently, but that's just what that's your job. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, okay, was he helped, slipped in behind because of the sort of game it was with a very low block? No. I think when he came in centrally, he did okay with a couple of decent touches, but I just need to see a lot more from him on the right if he's going to stay on the right. Otherwise, I would actually rather have a Trossard on the right because Trossard is a little bit better in tight spaces. He can do, or a Jesus, he can do some of what a Saka can do. And I think Martinelli sort of deals with that position in a very different way, a lot more straight line, a lot more... just different. So
he's definitely more instinctual as well. He strikes me as a player, if you give him time, he usually makes the wrong decision. If he's got that split second, that's when he kind of shines. You just said about Jesus as well. I think he was someone, especially in the first half, he was creating a lot of 2v1s. His movement was unbelievable. At points, it was like, oh, we've got, obviously the last 2 games, he's really, really shined. You can see him playing with more confidence, but for this game, I felt like him being out on the right wing might have made more sense. However, I think he was key to that first goal and the way that we were progressing the ball forward. He was someone that was really good. It was interesting, actually. I don't know how you felt, him coming off for Marino and Havertz going back up top, because that wasn't a move that I personally kind of would have thought that would be the way forward. But...
And I'd be keen to see Gabby go down the middle. I think at this point, as his body's maturing, as he's filling out and is a bit more stocky, I just can't see that kind of nimbleness that I used to see on the wing, which I think was kind of helping him. And then his angles are kind of set in the way they are, and I just don't see how that. I don't see how either side he's getting himself from 5 to 4 into the middle. I just don't see that happening. So I'd be really keen to see him, even if it's half an hour, as a centre forward, maybe playing against a slightly better team off the last line, running in behind, dropping in, or running the channels or whatever it is. Just seeing something slightly different. I think Jesus, to me, I don't know. It's hard because obviously he's had a decent run of games and scored some goals, so you don't want to move him out of that position. But yeah, I would be keen to see that Martinelli paired with Ødegaard or Waneri, whatever, giving him some service. He needs to be platformed. But yeah, it's at this point, especially for a player, he's not a kid anymore. I think he's 24 next year. He isn't, and he needs to take some responsibility. This is one evening, so I'm not going too hard on him. And he's played one game on the right, and so we have against the low block, which just isn't his game, which is fair enough. But I think it's certainly one to watch. Let's come to this super chat from Nefemi, who says, I can't remember the last time I clapped Martinelli. I feel he has to show his individual qualities wherever he is. And this is how I feel. I think you can absolutely hold the fact that he's being moved around. You can hold the fact that, there's form, there's, continuity, there's, Saka, White and Odegaard, as I've said a few times recently, have had 3 years to create a connection or whatever. It takes time. But even in his individual actions, there's been a lot of games this year, and we're approaching 2025. There's a lot of games in 2024 that I've just gone, it doesn't matter where you are, that's not good enough. Like, you've made the wrong decision. So it's you could be at centre back. It doesn't matter. Let's come to as many comments as we can before we end the show. Let's come to this. There was one earlier that was a good point, which was, I think it was about Timber. I can't find it. Basically, that Timber's got 1 yellow card away from getting suspended, which is slightly concerning. Where is Ben White? When is Ben White back?
I don't think it's been confirmed yet, is it?
When
I'll have a little look.
On Physio Room, it will normally say, I have a sort of decent guess, or Premier Injuries. So Premier Injuries says Ben White is back. No, that's Bournemouth. We're not Bournemouth. Ben White is back early March.
8th of March.
Ben is going to be out for 4 months. As in not 4 months, FOR months. We had to make a decision in the last few weeks, unfortunately. It got to a point where we had to protect the player, and we decided to do the surgery. Okay. So we still, we're probably going to face certainly January without him, and hopefully he's back in sort of sometime in February. So a lot of load on Timber. It is a concern for me, I can't lie. This is where we need Tomiyasu. So and that's another conversation. So McLovin says, after watching that, we are not winning the Premier League. How are you feeling about the race overall, my good friend Alex?
Thanks, mate. I go back and forth. I'm so pleased, genuinely, that I get to have these chats with you, because straight after the game, like, it is so easy to internalize stuff. But when you have to come on here, just so everyone knows as well, this is the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. Just come, like, to be straight on, and talk to you and talk to George and really kind of analyze the game is so difficult. Looking at long term, the odds are that we won't win it. You look at Liverpool's pace. I think they're on a 93, 94 point pace. For them to maintain that, I don't think that will happen. They will have a drop off, and we have to capitalize on it. However, with Saka out for the duration he's out, for us to lose White for that long, you look at how long we lost Odegaard for. That, if you told me at the end of the season, without the table, look, we have lost all these players, we've had all these red cards, how do you think? I would say we'd probably get pipped to the post. So I try to keep positive, and I keep thinking, we've got to. As fans, that's our job. You turn up, you support the team, you try and you try and stay positive as much as you can. But for us to win the Premier League, we have got to do something special, and that includes the January transfer window. I don't think we can go through the window without getting someone who's actually going to kind of change that attack and change our fortunes. Because if we don't do that, we're going to see more of this, more kind of stale attacking, really.
Yeah. I think on Liverpool, I mean, look, I think Liverpool are going to have a drop off, and basically, if you don't think they will, that's fair. But what you're basically saying is they're going to have the 5th, 4th best Premier League season of all time. That's fine. If you think they're going to do 94, basically, I think if they win their next 2 games, they're on a 48 point pace for the first half of the season. If you think they're going to replicate that, that's 96 points. That's the 4th or 5th best ever Premier League season. If you think they're going to do that, that's absolutely fair. Fair enough. But I just think you need to know what you're saying, and that's what you're saying, and that's fine. But I just don't think that's going to happen. However, that doesn't mean that they're going to drop off enough for us to catch them, nor does it mean that we're going to capitalize when they do. So I think they will have a moment, and certainly a blip, but it's that's basically the gamble. And as you say, without Saka, that's going to be really, really hard, because we're going to see games like this where we go through. But I also think, in the next couple of months, I would be very, very surprised if we're not sat here on an instant reaction with a draw, basically saying we needed more firepower today.
Yeah.
So, would I be surprised if that happened? Absolutely not. And that, as you say, all roads lead to the January transfer window. And this is, the hard part for me of doing these interactions is sometimes coming up with new things to say. Guys, you don't need some YouTuber to tell you what you saw this evening.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do, Alex. We need you.
You know what you saw with your eyes. You saw with your eyes a team that creates an unbelievable amount of dominance in the final third, an unbelievable amount of touches, an unbelievable amount of territory, a team that controls games, that has you in a vice like that, but doesn't have a knife. And unless we sign a knife, this season is going to be very, very hard. And then we're relying on variance. That's what we're relying on. We're relying on a Salah injury, or and that's another thing. If you don't think Liverpool will drop off, fair enough. But then you're basically saying Salah's going to get 70 GA. He's got 35 GA already. So if you don't think he's going to drop off, fine. He's going to get 70 GA, is what you're saying. Okay. But yeah, so we're reliant on variance, whether a mad injury situation or whatever it might be. So yeah, and I just don't think you can rely on that. I think you can close the gap and close the variance gap if you go and do a signing. Even then, it's going to be tough, but then at least you've done something. So yeah, it's. I wish we had more positivity, but unfortunately, that's where I'm at.
Can't really add anything more onto that, mate.
But also as you said it, like if someone said, I think most reason. Look, there's always going to be a vocal minority, but what I always think is there's however many millions of Arsenal fans, and there's however many thousands of people who watch different channels or whatever, and you see one comment and you think that's representative of everyone. I think most people, the what I call the not vocal majority, would say the exact same as you. If you said to me, Saka's going to be injured for 2 months, Ødegaard's going to be injured for 2 months, we're not going to Ben White for 3 months, we're going to have one of the worst fixture starts to the Premier League campaign ever, we're going to have 3 red cards, we're going to do all these things, and if we get, and then you find out that Liverpool have the 4th best Premier League season ever, do we win the league? It's like, well, what can you do at that point?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to, I look at Liverpool's team, and we've mentioned it before, we've said it before. They have Salah, Trent, Van Dijk. They've even got Alisson just coming back, So they've got players who really can say that and stake a claim for Premier League all-timers. I don't think we've got anyone on that standing yet. I will say, there's my little caveat for you. I would say, players like Saliba, like Saka down the road will. But right now, and that's the difference. You look at a Premier League season, and every single Premier League team that's won, even the teams like Leicester that weren't expected to win, you look at like players like Mahrez, Vardy, Kante, they were players who are right in the upper tier echelon of football. And right now, we need our players to step up
the whole season.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. So
yeah.
We'll be there at the end of the season, though. We will be there.
We will be there. I fully believe that we will be in and around the conversation until the very end. I think that is the one thing I do believe. I don't think at any point this is going to just be, done by February. I really don't buy that. But yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, the odds are in Liverpool's favour right now. Absolutely, no doubt at all. But we can still keep going, and we did win this evening. It does put us. Let me just get the Premier League table up. It does put us second in the table. We've got Brentford coming up next Wednesday. Would you just read out the fixtures for the next couple of sort of game weeks, because I'm sort of slightly lost with that while I get the table up. But I know we're playing Brentford next Wednesday, sort of afternoon kickoff, so 5:30 kickoff, I think it is. So let me just get the table up so we can all see. 5:30 against Brentford. Then what's next?
So we've got them Brighton on the Saturday, again at 5:30. And then we have Newcastle and Man United.
Interesting. Newcastle, I presume, at home, and then United, Old Trafford?
At home again.
At home again. Okay, great. Okay. So there's the Premier League table as it stands. Arsenal played 18, won 10, drawn 6, lost 2. The draws are stacking up, man. 435 against 16. Interestingly, we have the second highest. Obviously, you'd hope so if we're second in the league, but also we have the second highest goal difference. And form wise, we are matching Liverpool. So we're at least in the last 5. It's not too bad.
No, I mean, and this is the thing. It's not all doom and gloom. We are second in the Premier League right now, and I know it's not gone the way that we thought. Like it's not been the story that everyone expected. I think everyone would have said Man City would have been up there, and we would maybe a point or two behind them. But the reality is, this is how it's gone. We have to stay in that fight. We have to. I think you said just about February. Then February usually is that time that we kind of look and we go, oh, who is in the title race, who's not. We'll still be there, and we've got to just remain positive. And hopefully, we do something in January, and the team is looking a bit more free flowing because the defense, we got the best defense in the league. We do. Our out of possession work is unbelievable. Our counter pressing today was really, really good again. So we're a team that can control games. Our top 6 results have been unbelievable. Look at London derbies, first ever calendar year since 2005 for a team to be undefeated in London derbies. It's not all doom and gloom.
Or is it?
Until now. Thanks, Alex.
Mikel Arteta predicts more than 2 months on the sidelines. This is just quotes that are just coming in on the sidelines with Bukayo Saka after having surgery on his hamstring. So about 10 weeks, which puts him back. When would he come back? If that's 10 weeks, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that puts us in about March, early March.
It's about the same time as Ben White.
Yeah. We need a signing. We needed one before that news. We need one after. That's really frustrating. Oh, listen, folks, all we can do is go game by game, and we are a lot better than many, many teams in this league. We need a lot to go for us. We need a lot of luck, but stick together. Let's hope we get a signing in. And look, ultimately, I think, I also agree with a lot of what you say. Obviously, that puts a downer on it. But if you look at the situation we're in, we are third in the Champions League. We've got semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. We're second in the Premier League, and we are obviously in the FA Cup as well. Like, we're in a really good position. We just absolutely desperately need an attacking signing to see us through. We need some impetus. We need some growth. We need to show all that dominance and territory matters, and that we have that knife when we get people in the vice. But we'll see.
All right, a little bit of positivity before we finish, Alex. Here we go. Ready? Come the end of the season,
yes,
even if we didn't win the Premier League, we could still end up second, win the Champions League, win the EFL Cup, and that would be a remarkable season. So let's just wait, see how it plays out. And by the time, we get to that end of the season, the real nitty-gritty of the league, we get our right-hand side back as well. So,
we just have to stay in touching distance. We just have to stay in touching distance in the next couple of months. I think we can do that with the right signing and with a bit of luck. I think we can. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Unfortunately, that's a bit of a downer. We did win against Ipswich though this evening. 3 points. 3 points. We take it. We move on to Brentford. Thank you, Alex Forder, for being here.
Thanks for having me, mate. Always a pleasure.
Thanks everyone for being here in the chat. Appreciate it very, very much. We're here for about half an hour after every single Arsenal game. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. We've got some Patreon and YouTube member content coming next week. We've got TCP Live next week, as always. We've got a data pod coming soon for patrons and YouTube members. Loads of good stuff. So thank you all for being here. And thanks for keeping Arsenal.